All right, what is up, everybody? Welcome to the Touchdown Glass Podcast. I am your host, Michael V. Jones. You know, here we are keeping it real. No crazy hot takes or agendas, just good old fashioned football talk the way you like it. And as always, I appreciate you tuning in. Well, you know, it's been crazy times, right? Spooky season's over. The election is the book, so don't worry. We will not talk about that at all. We're here to talk football and fun stuff. So no worries there. And here we are heading into, I guess, Thanksgiving season, Christmas season. I don't know. It's all bundled up into one. um, but anyway, we should have an exciting week of college football coming up, and of course, a very exciting week of pro football. And yeah, let's just get right into it. See what happened in week 9. We started off on Thursday night where the New York Jets, Halloween night, defeated the Houston Texans 21-13. So Jets, after a 5-game losing streak, are now 3-6. The Texans with their third loss of the season at 6-3. So Aaron Rodgers, I think he only had like 32 yards passing in the first half. It was very pedestrian game, but he did finish strong, found his mojo, 3 touchdown passes, including one to Devontae Adams. CJ Stroud, not such a good night, only completed 11 passes. It did go for just under 200 yards. But 11 out of 30, and he was sacked 8 times. Joe Mixon ran the ball well for the Texans, but it wasn't enough. So Texans are definitely going to have to fix some things on that offensive line, as they try to make this playoff push and close out the division down the stretch. All right, the Carolina Panthers defeat the New Orleans Saints 23-22, and just remember where we were in week 1, where the Saints just dismantled the Panthers and Bryce Young, but Bryce Young back in the lineup, and I believe this is only his third win as a starter. But he got some good assistance from running back Chuba Hubbard, who had 72 yards and 2 touchdowns. Alvin Kamara in a losing effort, 215 total yards, but pretty pretty crazy, right? Just thinking where we were week 1 and how the Panthers were able to pull this one off. Saints lose their 7th in a row, and that's the end of Dennis Allen. And we'll talk about that in a little bit. The Washington Commanders defeat the New York Giants 27-22. The Commanders sweeping the Giants on the season, a team that's always given them trouble for whatever reason, even when they're bad. The Giants, the Commanders going into MetLife Stadium, getting the win. They're 7-2. The Giants are the flip side of that, 2-7. So Daniel Jones and Jaden Daniels both had 2 touchdown passes in this one. And Washington was actually up 21-7 in the half. So New York Giants, they made a little bit of a comeback, but in the end, it fell short. And Washington just continues to their winning ways this year. And the Giants, it's just another one of those seasons. Got to be very frustrating for them. All right, the Los Angeles Chargers beat the Cleveland Browns 27-10. So the Chargers quietly 5-3. Harbaugh kind of doing his thing in this first year. We'll see. We'll see if it can continue. The Browns, after a win last week against the Ravens, they fall to 2-7. Jameis Winston turned back into a pumpkin. Those balls that should have been intercepted last week, they were caught this week. He was picked off 3 times. On the other side, Justin Herbert threw 2 touchdown passes and 282 yards. J.K. Dobbins, 105 total yards and 2 touchdowns. All right, the Tennessee Titans defeated the New England Patriots in overtime, 20-17. So 2 bad teams. Tennessee now 2-6. New England now 2-7. However, they put together a pretty entertaining football game. Uh, the Titans were able to win the turnover battle in this one 3-1, and I think that's really the difference. They got a field goal in overtime on their first drive, the Titans did. However, that did not end the game. It took them intercepting a Drake May pass to seal it on New England's chance to rebuttal. There was a highlight touchdown pass in this one from Drake May to Ramondre Stevenson to set up overtime. So if you haven't seen it, definitely check that one out. I have kind of been impressed with Drake May this year. All things considered, I think he's definitely an upgrade for this team with Mac Jones. And I think this has actually been a really good rookie class of quarterbacks, but maybe we'll talk a little bit more about that later. All right. Let's see. Where am I? The Atlanta Falcons defeated the Dallas Cowboys 27-21. Kirk Cousins, 3 touchdown passes, 222 yards. Yeah, there was just breakdowns in the Dallas secondary. Obviously, Dak Prescott got hurt. Cooper Rush came in late and had a touchdown, or came in later to replace Dak Prescott. Had a late touchdown to Jalen Tolbert uh, to make the game 27-21. The onside kick failed, and yeah, just more trouble for the Dallas Cowboys. And we'll get into that a little later. Hold on, there's one game I don't have here I did want to mention. I don't know why I don't have it on my list, so just bear with me. It's the Ravens Broncos, which I believe the final was 41-10. So just hang with me for a second. Yeah, so the Ravens did defeat the Denver Broncos, 41-10. So the Ravens go to 6-3. Broncos go to 5-4. Derrick Henry, another big game with a couple of touchdowns, and just Denver was they've looked pretty good against fairly decent competition, but I guess when you get against a superior juggernaut like the Ravens, they were just no match. So sorry I didn't have that one on the slate. So let's go to who the Ravens are playing next week. The Cincinnati Bengals. They finally won a home game and defeated the Las Vegas Raiders 41-24. So Bengals go to 4-5. Raiders fall to 2-7. Burrow with 5 touchdown passes, 2 to Mike Gesicki. Minshew was benched for Riddler in this game. Desmond Ritter. I'm sorry, not Riddler. Desmond Ritter. Gardner Minshew benched for And the Raiders fired a bunch of their coaching staff afterwards, which we will talk about. All right, the Arizona Cardinals defeat the Chicago Bears 29-9. Cardinals go to 5-4 and are actually winning the NFC West. The Bears 4-4, which maybe wouldn't be that bad of a season considering you're starting a rookie quarterback, but considering they were 4-2, they had a lot of momentum. They blew that game in Washington, and now they're looking up at the rest of that tough NFC North division. It's not good. I mean, the Bears just came out flat in this one, and I guess it's not surprising considering the mood after the Washington game the previous week. The talk about Eberflus not really having control of that team, and I think this definitely proves that. The Bears, they had no touchdowns in this one, and if you look back to last week, they couldn't really score till they had that big fourth quarter against Washington. So just 3 field goals for them. In a game where they even won the turnover battle in time of possession. So the Cardinals, though, to their credit, 200 yards rushing, which included 107 by James Conner with 5.9 yards per carry. All right, the Philadelphia Eagles beat the Jacksonville Jaguars 28-23, with the Eagles going to 6-2, the Jags falling to 2-7. So this should have been a blowout by the Eagles. And, you just look at the stat line. You're like, how is this game a game they almost lost? And I think that's just been their Achilles all year. What is holding them back? And it's Nick Sirianni being a bozo. There's just no way around it. And it's, great head coach. I mean, great owner, great GM, great personnel, and just a very mediocre head coach that just doesn't really. I don't know how he fits into the equation, but that's how good this team is. They can win in spite of him. Saquon Barkley, 199 total yards and 1 touchdown. Jalen Hurts with 3 total touchdowns. but this game came down to a last drive by Jacksonville in which Trevor Lawrence, I think it was a first down throw, and he just made a terrible throw in the end zone. It was picked off by Nakobe Dean, Eagles linebacker, and that was all she wrote. All right, the Los Angeles Rams beat the Seattle Seahawks 26-20 in a very tight NFC West. Rams right in the thick of it at 4-4. Seattle still in it, but they are 4-5 after, so they've lost uh, what is it, 4 of their last 5. They were 3-0, so really, 5 of their last 6 that they've lost. It was an entertaining game. Stafford with 2 touchdown passes to Demarcus Robinson, including the game winner in overtime. Geno Smith added 3 TDs himself, but also 3 crucial interceptions, and that's kind of been the story of Geno this year. Just some really bad decisions in the red zone. Not all his fault with some of the miscues I think he's having with the offense, and it's a little difficult, I think, when DK Metcalf's not in these games and you don't have that big red zone target. But regardless, he's got to do a better job of taking care of the football, and that's kind of been that's why Seattle's on the bottom of this division right now and not on top. All right, the Detroit Lions handled the Green Bay Packers 24-14, and it wasn't even that close. I mean, the rain was no problem for the Lions, the indoor dome team, right? I mean, this team is tough, and they can beat you in so many ways. Amon-Ra St. Brown and Jahmyr Gibbs both scored, so the playmakers are getting involved. But Kirby Joseph picking off Jordan Love and returning it for a touchdown, right before the half. I think it was the dagger in this one, and you knew that the Packers were done. So the Lions 7-1, Packers 6-3. So Packers look like a playoff team, but I don't think that they can take this division. All right, Sunday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. The Minnesota Vikings defeat the Indianapolis Colts 21-13. Yes, this was kind of a boring game for Sunday Night Football. I didn't really think it when I saw it. Other people were complaining about it, but the quarterbacks, Flacco and Darnold, through a lot of the drives, they look like backups. And but it helps. If you're the Vikings and you have Justin Jefferson, who can add 7 receptions for 137 yards, and Darnold, despite throwing 2 picks, did throw for 290 yards and 3 touchdown passes. So Vikings 6-2, Colts 4-5. All right, Monday Night Football. Dun 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 dun. The Kansas City Chiefs 30, the Tampa Bay Buccaneers 24. The Chiefs are 8-0. The Buccaneers, after I believe they were like 4-1, right? Yeah, I think they were off like 4-1 start, so they've dropped 4 in a row. They are 4-5 now. Patrick Mahomes, a really nice game for him, nearly 300 yards and 3 touchdown passes. Baker Mayfield, despite his top 2 targets being out, he was able to throw 2 touchdown passes and really probably gave the Chiefs defense the biggest fit that they've had all year, biggest challenge. Kelsey again is really starting to get going. We kind of were ready to send Travis Kelsey off to the sunset. Big game last week. This week, 14 receptions, 100 yards. The Buccaneers scored with 27 seconds left to go, and they're getting some criticism now for not going for 2. And okay, hindsight's always 2020, but yeah, maybe you just do need to take your shot on the road and go for 2 and try to end it. Because the Chiefs won the coin flip and Baker Mayfield's face said it all, because Patrick Mahomes drove him down the field and Kareem Hunt 2-yard touchdown. Ball game. All right. If I didn't mention the Pittsburgh Steelers and the San Francisco 49ers, that is because they had a bye. So let's get into these top stories of the week. We're going to talk about coaching changes and the trade deadline and the deals that were made, and the deal that the Cowboys made that oh God, it's not a deal that really gives you hope. It's more of a deal that shows their ineptitude. So, but let's start in New Orleans. Dennis Allen fired. A lot of people predicted beginning of the season, including my own buddy Brandon Halsey, predicted that Dennis Allen would be the first coach to be fired in season. Now we know that was wrong, because Robert Saleh was. And then I thought, is Dennis Allen really getting fired when they started off 2-0 and blew out the Panthers and the Cowboys? Well, it turns out we knew the Panthers were bad. The Cowboys are a lot worse than we thought, and then the Saints have just crumbled and fallen apart. And Dennis, they said, you know what, enough is enough. Dennis Allen gone. He's just one of these guys. He's a coordinator, not a head coach, and I think it's got to be hard for. I know New Orleans was kind of laughing last year when Denver, Sean Payton had Russell Wilson, and it was a mess. Now he's got that team going with a rookie quarterback. I know that they lost um, last week, but um, I know that they lost last week, or yeah, this past week to Baltimore. But overall, the Broncos are overachieving, they're exceeding expectations in New Orleans. Big disappointment. So Darren Rizzi is the special teams, or who was the special teams coach, is now the interim head coach. I'm not really sure where the Saints go from here. Did they kind of just start shutting down guys? When they get that first little injury, start playing young guys, seeing what they have. And yeah, I think it's going to be a complete rebuild, complete overhaul. They've always had some issues with the cap. I think they still do. So, yeah, big changes are coming in New Orleans. It's just going to, the landscape of the football team is, I think, going to be a lot different. And I think they're going to be in that kind of that Carson Beck, Shedeur Sanders, and whoever else are the top quarterbacks. They're going to be in the market for that. They know Spencer Rattler is not the answer there, and Derek Carr, you know, he just doesn't win games, and I think they're going to move on from him too. So we'll see what happens there. Speaking of Derek Carr's former team, the Las Vegas Raiders, they have fired offensive coordinator Luke Getsy, offensive line coach James Craig, and quarterback coach Rich Scangarello. So they've pretty much fired their whole offensive coaching staff. They have promoted Scott Turner, their passing game coordinator. He's going to be calling plays now. And they have brought on Scott's dad, Norv Turner, who we all know is a head coach and a very good offensive coordinator wherever he's been. He's going to be a senior advisor on offense. So Norv, actually a former Raiders head coach once upon a time, probably like 20 years ago. So funny how, it goes around, keeps coming around. So I was for the move when the Raiders brought in Antonio Pierce, or when Antonio Pierce took over for Josh McDaniels. The team played much better last year, and you thought maybe, this interim coach, let's carry it over. They didn't do it with Rich Bisaccia, which a lot of people thought was a mistake. So they said, let's not do it. Let's not make the same mistake twice with Antonio Pierce. But this has been a complete disaster. Now, is it all Pierce's fault? I guess he deserves his share of blame. Maybe he's not a head coach. However, I mean, this is just Mark Davis just seems like he's picking up where Al Davis left off, right? I mean, the Raiders just continue to be a laughing stock. I thought this team kind of, you know, just judging how Antonio Pierce was running the team at the end of last year, I thought this could carry over some momentum. I thought Gardner Minshew to Devontae Adams, could work, not be off the charts, but could work to win some games here and there and sneak into the playoffs. Obviously, I was completely wrong there. And the Raiders are a mess, and they're in that quarterback sweepstakes, which they were going to be anyway, with the Saints. So if you are a Raiders fan, this might actually work out better for you than Gardner Minshew kind of giving you false hope for the future. Maybe you get your quarterback of the future here because you'll have a bad enough record to draft them. So yeah, I don't know what to say here. It's I will say this: Cliff Kingsbury was going to take that job as the offensive coordinator for the Raiders, and something happened and it fell through. They brought in Luke Getsy from the Bears. The the Bears were moving on from Justin Fields, and they just wanted to, I guess, whole new offense for Caleb Williams coming in. They brought in Luke Getsy as an alternative to Cliff Kingsbury. What would have happened if Cliff Kingsbury takes that Raider job? Is he still the toast of the town like he is in Washington? Would he be that in Vegas? I don't think so. And, that was a smart move by Kingsbury because he, I think, is in line for a head coaching job next year. All right. So let's look at some of these moves that were made on the trade deadline. The Detroit Lions get pass rusher Za'Darius Smith from the Cleveland Browns. So Za'Darius Smith returning back to the NFC North, a division he's very familiar with as a former Viking and Packer. So I think this is a great move for the Lions. They've lost Aiden Hutchinson. They're able to bring in another guy, maybe not quite at that caliber, but can definitely get after the quarterback. The San Francisco 49ers get Khalil Davis from the Houston Texans. So they've had some injuries on the defensive line. This Khalil Davis defensive tackle, that kind of helps shore that up. Another Khalil, the Cincinnati Bengals get running back Khalil Herbert from the Chicago Bears. He kind of fell out of the mix there. Couldn't, with the running backs they have that they like in Chicago, didn't really leave much for Khalil Herbert. So the Bengals kind of hoping that this can jumpstart them and they can make a push toward the playoffs and get that running game going. All right. The Washington Commanders get Marshawn Lattimore from the New Orleans Saints. So people are kind of on the fence about this move as far as, yes, he's a great player, but he does have some injury history. So, this could pay dividends if he stays healthy. Because I think he's a corner that definitely fits in Dan Quinn's defense. And if you're a Washington Commanders fan, why not go for it? Everything is going your way right now for once. So maybe this, is a move that helps Washington do some damage in the playoffs. We know they can get there. I think the real question is, can they, go anywhere in the playoffs? Well, making a move like that is saying, yeah, that's what we're going for. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers get a couple of guys. They get Mike Williams from the New York Jets. So former Charger Mike Williams brought into the Jets. It's not working out there. They bring in Devontae Adams. He's kind of the odd man out. So Pittsburgh adds another wide receiver that they think can help their offense. And then Preston Smith, the pass rusher from the Packers. I think he kind of had like an expiring deal, and this was Green Bay saying, hey, let's get something for him while we can. And, you add a guy like that into your rotation with a TJ Watt, yeah, that could work out pretty good for Pittsburgh. All right, the Ravens added corner Tre'Davious White from the Rams. So Ravens, as good as they are, do need a little defensive help. So a nice move there. And here we go. Here's the one that I'm talking about, the head scratcher, right? Dallas, are they going to be buyers or sellers at the trade? Oh, they were buyers, but they got wide receiver Jonathan Mingo from the Carolina Panthers, a wide receiver struggling to get on the field from the Panthers. They give up a fourth round pick for a fourth round pick. Okay, I get this guy was a second round pick. I get he's a speed demon. But when you build your team through the draft, you don't sign free agents. You build your team through the draft. And this is what it makes no sense. Why? And you've actually cut a couple of guys like that defensive back Booth and Jordan Phillips, who's back with the Buffalo Bills, the defensive tackle. These are guys you traded for. So you're just throwing draft picks out the window when you build your team through the draft, and you're not even holding on to these guys. So Jerry Jones has gone. I know I was mentioning Mark Davis and Al Davis. Obviously that's continuing on. However, Jerry Jones is the Al Davis 2.0 now, and I've defended Jerry in a lot of ways, and I think I had rights to defend. I mean, the Cowboys were he needed to make some tweaks he never made, and the Cowboys were winning games, and he wasn't this. They weren't the what the Detroit Lions and the Cleveland Browns were. There's teams that just could never get out of their own way year after year after year. But now, the hubris and the arrogance have taken over with the, you know, mild success that he's had, and the roster is a disaster. It's a disaster. If your quarterback's hurt and your season is essentially over because Dak Prescott, that hamstring injury, I don't think he's going to come. There's no point in him really coming back this season because this isn't an NFC East this year where it's a very bad division. And even if you have only won a few games, you're still hanging around in December. It's not that year. It's not. This is not the Ron Rivera 7-9 Washington football team year that made the playoffs. It's not that. Right? Washington already has 7 wins, or we're just entering into November. They're 7-2. So, and the Eagles are just a half game under them at 6-2, and that's going to be fun to see those teams play. So, I don't know why you wouldn't sell. Is trading Micah Parsons for a haul of picks stupid? No, because you haven't paid him. He's going to be expensive, and how are you going to replenish this roster when you're paying all this money and you don't have the draft capital? If you're talking about bringing in a coach like Bill Belichick, he loves to stockpile picks. So why aren't you doing it? Just these things don't make any sense. Maybe their scouts really like Jonathan Mingo, and I know the Panthers have been a mess, and maybe he, you know, is able to do a little bit better in Dallas. It's not life changing, right? It's not it's it's not making a big difference in Dallas except screwing up the draft capital you need to try to hit on these picks and rebuild your roster. You have, it's great you got some all pros. You don't have enough Jimmys and Joes. It ain't gonna work. It ain't gonna work. So the dysfunction continues, and that's enough talk about my Dallas Cowboys until we get to their game here in Week 10. So let's look at these games in Week 10, and we got a football game tonight, Thursday Night Football, a great one. The Cincinnati Bengals at the Baltimore Ravens. This is huge. The Bengals had a chance earlier in the season, lost that game. Can they get to 500, a division win? Show the Ravens they still mean business. Probably too late to win a division, but I think they could definitely make a push to the playoffs. But a win tonight, it would really help that cause. It should be a fun one. All right, the New York Football Giants at the Carolina Panthers this Sunday in Germany. So, two bad football teams, but the Panthers did win last week. The Giants, it's not like they get blown out every game. They keep the games interesting. What kind of a disaster is it going to be if the Giants go over there and drop it to the Panthers? Are they that bad where they're losing to Bryce Young and the Panthers? I don't know, but this is Germany. It's overseas. Sometimes unexpected things can happen. So we'll see. All right. The New England Patriots at the Chicago Bears. So Bears do play well at home. They need something good to happen. Their coach needs to make the chatter go away. Winning's the best deodorant. The Bears still have a great defense, and Drake May is, I think, off to a better start than we thought he was going to be. And this is a rookie quarterback battle, right? Caleb Williams, Drake May. It's not the sexy one of the, Jaden Daniels a couple of weeks ago. But I think it's important for the Bears to come and ball out and not only win, but maybe make a statement and make some of this chatter go away. All right, the San Francisco 49ers at the Tampa Bay Buccaneers. So the Niners have had their bye. Buccaneers, Baker and that offense isn't playing bad. It's just they're not able to come away with wins, and they're getting a Niners team off a bye. Can the Niners, bring it the second half of the season and be that team we thought they would be at the beginning of the year? I think this game is kind of an indicator, even though I don't believe McCaffrey will be back for this one. Probably not for another week. Um, I think it's important. It's really important for both teams, but maybe it might be more pivotal for the Buccaneers because they are really sinking down the standings for their playoff chances. They they need this win more because if the Niners lose, this NFC West is so tight, and they still have division games left. It can make a big difference where the Bucks have already lost to the Falcons twice. The Falcons are winning. The Bucks need something to go their way. All right, Denver Broncos at the Kansas City Chiefs. So, you know, Kansas City continues to do what they do to have to win. It might be another game like that because even though Denver got blown out by the Ravens, this is a division game. I think they're going to play the Chiefs tough. It should be fun. However, at the end of the day, I think the Chiefs have too many veteran guys that can step up and make a play to make a difference. Oh yeah, and they have that guy Patrick Mahomes, who's you can just throw the stats out of the window and watch the games. He is amazing. All right, Buffalo Bills at the Indianapolis Colts. So Buffalo, you know, big for them that they are, McDermott was kind of being questioned at the beginning of this year. Is he what's holding them back? They got off to a hot start, kind of stumbled, but they are winning games. Whether they're blowouts or tight ones, I think they go on the road and handle the Indianapolis Colts. And I like Joe Flacco, but Father Time might be, and he's a very strong arm, serviceable quarterback in a Shane Steichen offense, but Father Time might say, yeah, it's time to slow down a little bit. And I think the Bills, at the end of the day, just they're going to be able to make more plays that the Colts won't. All right, the Pittsburgh Steelers at the Washington Commanders. So what a great matchup this is. Two teams leading their division. Uh, yeah, and who would have thought that? I think if we looked at this game uh, heading into the year, we didn't think that this would be as big of a. These teams would be where they are now. Even the Steelers, we know what they can kind of do, but they're leading a very tough NFC North, and Washington, yeah, definitely. A lot of us thought they'd be improved, but they're looking like they have a good shot to get a high playoff seed. So I don't know which way. I kind of lean Pittsburgh in this one. Would not be surprised at all if the Commanders took it. It's going to be that good of a game. All right, the Minnesota Vikings at the Jacksonville Jaguars. So Jaguars, I do want to say they're playing better, but they really didn't play good last week. The the Eagles just and Nick Sirianni just let them hang around with his horrible coaching decisions. So I do think it was good. Minnesota got back to their winning ways last week, and I just think they're going to be too much for the Jags to handle. I think Darnold and company go on the road and take care of business here. Atlanta Falcons at the New Orleans Saints. So we'll see. Does the coaching change just give the guys on that team a little bit of a spark? 7 losses in a row. Oh, look, they fired the coach. Maybe it kind of does. Sometimes a coach firing does light a fire under guys. But again, and this is a rivalry, so anything can happen. But just I don't know. Everything's going very well for Atlanta this year, all things considered. We're not even talking about the Penix Cousins thing that we were talking about all off season, right? Kirk Cousins is playing great. There's young playmakers on Atlanta. They're getting involved. They're doing their thing. It's just two teams going in opposite directions. I like the Falcons. All right, Tennessee Titans at the Los Angeles Chargers. Can the Chargers quietly continue their winning ways, right? Could this be the team that sneaks through the back door? It's not very noisy with Harbaugh. You know, it's not a even though Harbaugh's high profile coach, it hasn't really been that sexy of a team, right? That we're not talking about it, that we're talking about a lot. I will say Tennessee can run the ball very well. I believe Tony Pollard is the second leading rusher in the AFC behind Derrick Henry. So the Titans, aren't exact as bad as they've been. You do have to. This is a professional football team. You do have to play against. But the Chargers at home, and they run the ball well with Dobbins. You got to give them the edge. New York Jets at the Arizona Cardinals. Interesting game. Don't know how it's going to go. Cardinals, when they win, sometimes they just win weird. Uh, they win weird, and yeah, I don't. And the Jets, I mean, was it more bad Houston last week? I mean, the Jets tried to give that game away a couple of times. Should it have even been that close? This one really has me scratching my head, especially when Arizona blew out Chicago last week with the stat, other than what they did on the ground, the stats, the turnovers, the time of possession. It's very odd. But the Cardinals are a division leader. They are playing at home. But you would think with the personnel that the Jets have, they should be able to go on the road and beat a team like Arizona. I'm totally clueless on this one. All right, Philadelphia Eagles at the Dallas Cowboys. So we know Cooper Rush will start for the Cowboys. Cowboys might have Micah Parsons back. I just don't think the defense wasn't playing well with him, and I think the only thing that may go right for the Cowboys is if Nick Sirianni, starts feeling himself again, and and maybe that leads to a couple bonehead errors that keeps the Cowboys in the game. I know it's a division game, it's a rivalry, so they'll be pumped for it. They're in Dallas, they haven't won a game uh, there at AT&T Stadium all year, but the Eagles just have so many playmakers. I don't know if Kellen Moore, knowing the Cowboys' personality, he's been removed a couple of years now, if that's going to make much of a difference. It didn't really make that much of a difference with the Chargers last year, but he does have better playmakers, obviously, this year in Philadelphia. But regardless, I like the Eagles. They have more horses. All right. It's Sunday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. The Detroit Lions at the Houston Texans. Uh, Detroit is just so superior. They might be the best team in football right now. And Houston, you know, I I kind of get in a habit of calling young teams that have success one year having a sophomore slump the next year. And while they are going to win their division, they are kind of having a little bit of some growing pains, a little bit of a sophomore slump. I know people aren't going to want to say that, because how could you say that this Houston organization, they were so bad, and now they win football games, and they do, but they're not that team where they can just, that we're going to, be launched into being an AFC contender. It's not happening. Um, and I think they're just going to have another rough week with Detroit, who are finding ways on defense. That we said Detroit's defense was kind of what was holding them back early in the year, and that hasn't been the case over the last several games. This is just a good, well-rounded football team with a great culture. I think they go on the road and beat Houston by multiple scores. All right, Monday Night Football. Dun, 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 dun. So the Miami Dolphins at the Los Angeles Rams. Um, not the sexiest game, but Miami with Tua back has had a couple tough losses, right? I think a 1-point loss to the Cardinals, and then followed up by that field goal, they lose by a 61-yard field goal to Tyler Bass and the Buffalo Bills. So it's not like, they are playing better with Tua in the lineup. The Rams playing better, but not world beaters, right? They're winning close games too. So, um, I think it's a little too late for the Dolphins. But with the Rams, it's important for them to keep pace in that very tight NFC West. And I think it's a game that could go either way. I really do. All right. So if I didn't mention the Cleveland Browns, Green Bay Packers, Las Vegas Raiders, and Seattle Seahawks, that's because they're on a bye. So maybe made sense for Raiders to fire those coaches this week heading into the bye. They can try to implement their new offensive strategy. Don't know what difference it'll make, but we'll see. All right, that's all I got for this week. Enjoy the games, everybody.